Okay. Hello, I'm Jane Woodrow with the Ohio Psychological Association's Oral History Project. And today, July 19th, 2015, I'm interviewing Dr. Jean Drevenstedt, who is a past recipient of the Ohio Women in Psychology Lifetime Achievement Award. And she's been a professor at Ohio University. And I think we'll just start out knowing a little bit about your background, Jean. You had another career before you went into psychology, I understand.
I did indeed, but first, Jane, I want to thank you so much for inviting me to this interview.
Well, you're welcome.
And to get back on your first question, when you were asking me if I had a first career.
Right.
Actually, psychology was my second career. In fact, I did not major as a psychology major as an undergraduate. I majored in business administration. And after graduation, I worked for 9 years for an advertising agency. And then suddenly, for reasons that, as I look back on them, are somewhat unclear at this point, decided I would change career paths. I suspect all of us have reached those points of transition when we ask ourselves, is this really what we want to be doing, or is there something else out there? And so at that point, I left the agency, applied to graduate school. Vanderbilt University very kindly took me back into their graduate program after all of those years, and so I became a clinical psychologist.
So you went directly from advertising to clinical psychology?
Directly.
So you know how to advertise the field, I guess.
Well.
Okay. So when did you then graduate with your PhD?
The PhD, if I remember correctly, by the time I had finished the dissertation, was in January 1965. Then I came here to the psychology department at Ohio University in September of 1965.
Okay. And so,
actually, in between completing my graduate studies and coming here to OU, I had worked for 1 year in Denver, Colorado at the Children's Asthma Research Institute. Enjoyed it very much. Loved working with the children, but after a year thought that asthma research was just not my calling.
Okay. And so you came here to OU, got a job here, and so what was your position? What were you teaching here?
I taught, when I first came here, I was actually on a joint appointment between the University Counseling Center for 1/4 of the time and the psych department for 3/4 of the time. And that schedule lasted, if I remember correctly, a couple of years. And then I went full-time with the department. So actually I taught at all levels. I taught introductory courses, if I remember correctly, primarily statistics of all things. Abnormal psychology, introductory psychology, and then taught graduate level courses as well, tests and measurements, graduate seminars.
Okay. And at some point, I think you developed a particular interest in working with geriatric population, moving from children's asthma to geriatrics.
The other end of the lifespan.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, truly. I think what originally initiated my interest in gerontology was Jean Shirley, who at that time was teaching in the management program in the College of Business. And Jean approached me one day, if recollection serves me correctly, to see if I might be interested in joining with her in setting up an aging center on campus. She felt there was a real need for this. The university was doing nothing as far as the older population was concerned. And so essentially that was the very beginning of what is now United Seniors of Athens County. And I think with that little push from Jean, I looked around at demographics, looked at the sparsity of any research or any interest for that matter among psychologists in the issues of aging, and thought that we really needed to do something about this. This has to be a growing field. Demographics indicate that the aging population will only be increasing over the years, and that really sparked my interest in introducing something in the department.
So there wasn't even research out there outside of our university?
There was considerable research outside our university
but
by other schools.
Ohio University
but
wasn't.
Ohio University was not part of the picture at that point, not at all.
Yeah,
But there were several gerontology centers, very well known gerontology centers. University of Southern California is one that comes to mind. There are a number of others which were up and going and producing very, very good research. So this was not a foundation of research nationally by any manner of means, but OU wasn't doing anything. In fact, we weren't doing anything here in town to really be of any
Was there
assistance
anything
with,
in Ohio in general, do you know, or was it mostly out in these places like California that the research was being done? Do you know
maybe
anything?
a little bit in Ohio, not a great deal, not a great deal at that point.
Okay, yeah. And what time frame was this? About when did this happen?
I would say probably 1970, very early in the 1970s.
Okay. Okay, so you got involved in trying to get a center at the university that was dealing with aging?
Well, not so much a center, although I found the senior center on campus that Jean was attempting to set up very interesting. But I was primarily interested in getting some courses underway that might be of interest not only to our graduate students in clinical psychology, but also presumably to undergraduates. And might simply tune them a little bit to the fact that yes, there's another. Everybody was interested in children. Child
development. Then there was some adult development work being done.
Yes.
But not development through aging.
That's very true. That's very true. And there was other work being, and I'm trying to remember whether it had started at that point. I really don't recall. I'm recollecting, was it Miami University? I believe it might have been, did have a very active program going. And they were producing a great deal of research, as well as outside the state. And I may be wrong on the university. I'm not sure anymore without looking back on my notes where this was coming from. One of the universities in the state. So we were not the beginning down here by any manner of means.
But it was fairly early in the process of really thinking about development through aging.
Well, it was for OU. It was for OU.
Yeah. So what kind of courses did you design then?
Well, let's see. I had undergraduate seminar on psychology of aging. And it was very shortly after that that the College of Health and Human Services introduced a certificate program in gerontology. And so they involved psychology, they involved their own college, they involved social work, and a number of departments in coming together and providing a core of courses that students enrolled in primarily social work or sociology or possibly psychology could take and qualify for a certificate. So this was not a major by any manner or means, but it was very helpful actually.
And the certificate was through the College of Health and Human Services, and psychology was in the College of Arts and Sciences.
Arts and Sciences,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so you participated in helping to design that curriculum?
So it became very multidisciplinary. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, which it has to be.
Yes. Well, and that's probably fairly new too, the
And of course,
interdisciplinary
when the osteopathic got off the osteopathic college got off the ground, they introduced a department of geriatrics, which further, I think, produced interest on campus.
And I don't recall when the osteopathic school actually started, do you?
I don't either, Jane. I really don't.
Yeah, but it was a little later than that. I think maybe in the 80s?
I don't know, and I don't remember actually their Department of Geriatrics when that started. I'm sort of under the impression that was not originally part of their kickoff effort.
Right.
But as they developed different departments within the osteopathic college, it became one of them.
Right.
And I think a very important one as well.
Right.
And then there were a number of graduate students, primarily in clinical psychology, who became interested in issues of aging. And 3 of them that I have kept in touch with over the years that I feel very gratified in realizing that they have continued even into their professional practices around the country and interest in issues of aging.
Okay, good. So, was it hard being a female faculty when you started out? I mean, there weren't a lot of women faculty at that time.
No, there were not. There were not. I think there was one other tenure track faculty person in psychology at that point. We had a lecturer who had been with us for quite a number of years. And what I do remember, Jane, and I think an off-the-cuff response to your question, at faculty meetings, the lecturer, who was the female, who inevitably would be attending the faculty meetings, was always asked to make the coffee. Never one of the male faculty members. Never.
Yes. Yeah. Did she ever rebel?
No, I don't think she ever did.
Yeah, it's. I think that's still sometimes a problem, that people expect the women to be the secretaries and be the coffee makers.
Well, I think life on campus over all of these years that I have been around, life has changed so drastically as far as women students are concerned.
Right.
I can remember as an undergraduate at Indiana University, if you wanted to play tennis, you wore a raincoat buttoned up over your tennis shorts, and of course your tennis shorts were expected to be at least knee length.
I see.
Now, the men the male students.
You didn't have to play in the
No, you
raincoat,
could,
but
you
to
had
walk
to be
to
on the
it.
tennis court.
Yeah.
You had to be on the tennis court
Before you could take
your
that
raincoat
off.
off.
Okay.
Still remember that vividly.
Yes.
The men, no, they could walk all over campus in their shorts.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody minded, but not the co-eds.
Right, yeah.
I also remember, at least in business administration, as I had mentioned, which was my undergraduate major, very, very few women. Very few women.
I would imagine.
Part of that was probably determined by the fact that my freshman year at IU would have been 1946. And the veterans from the Second World War were coming back to campus on the GI Bill. And so they were piling in, of course, to business administration majors. And so many of my classes would have practically no females whatsoever. And even the early days on the faculty here at OU, although I think that psychology has always been a little more identified as a very appropriate field for women, there were still very few women faculty. There were very few women faculty in general on tenure track across the university.
Right, and I think that's been true.
And times have certainly changed.
Yeah, but I think...
And for the better.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it has improved a great deal, but it's still a struggle for many women.
It's still a little bit of a struggle. It is indeed.
Right. So did you find any blocks in the way to getting tenure here, or?
No, I don't really remember thinking so.
Okay.
No, I don't believe so when it came to that point. Tenure's always a very anxiety-producing time anyway, as you know.
For everybody.
For everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And so you were treated respectfully in faculty meetings and so on?
Oh, I think very much so.
Okay.
Very much so.
Yeah.
But talking about how times have changed, I remember one incident that would not occur now, but unfortunately I rather enjoyed it. I was clinical director at one point for our clinical training, doctoral clinical training program. And of course we were APA approved by the National American Psychological Association. And so our national accreditation came up periodically, of course. And the powers that be from the national office would come to campus and interview and look around and so forth, and decide whether you were worthy of a renewal of your certification. And I can remember the last day as the site visitor, of course these were always men, the site visitors were always men, that as he was wishing me goodbye, he buzzed me on both cheeks, which I thought was very nice, really very courteous, and so forth. Could he do that today? Oh, no, indeed. No, indeed.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so there's all this angst about harassment.
Angst about political correctness and, yes, a lot of other things that have entered in.
Right, okay.
And I must admit, I frankly rather enjoyed that. It was very courteous and very nice, and so.
Okay.
But it would not go over today. In fact, I would probably go shouting as the faculty member, go shouting to what would be the department here at OU that would deal with those kinds of concerns, and I would report it.
Yeah. Yeah. So eventually, I take it you did retire from the university?
I did retire in 30 years. That was 1995. Although I really didn't quite retire, partially retired, I think is a better way to put it. As you may recall at OU, and this is probably typical of many other universities as well, if you retire on schedule after 30 years of service, if you elect to do so, then you can be rehired for 1 quarter. We were on the quarter system back then, for 1 quarter until you're age 70. Well, for me, by the time I retired after 30 years, I was 68, so it meant 2 more years that I could do this, which I did. So I taught for 1 quarter on campus. And I also had, at that point, an independent study course on psychology and aging through the Lifetime Learning and Independent Study Office on campus. And I had students literally all over the world. And of course that was back before the day and age that everybody was doing everything electronically. So it meant that most of the lessons were sent back and forth by snail mail. And if you were enrolled in Lifetime Learning and you were off campus, you were given, I think it was 7 years to complete a course. With extensions.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm sure many extensions were well earned. If you were working over in, say, Saudi Arabia at the time, surely you needed a little additional time. But the point that I'm making is that at least 7 years after I thought I had retired, I was still grading lessons for independent study because I felt the commitment, of course, to see any of the students that I had through the pipeline until they would complete the course or drop out, as the case may be. So I think I was well into retirement. I was still wielding a red pencil.
Right.
So,
well,
but technically my retirement was 1995.
Right. Yeah. And so what have you found to do with yourself that keeps you young now?
When you retire in a smaller town, I have found that you really do not have to answer that question for yourself because everybody knows who has retired and everybody would appreciate help on something or other. So they tend to come to you.
Right.
And actually at least 3 areas that I'm still involved in, that I have been involved in throughout retirement and still am involved in, still have to do with the aging population in one way or another. I have been, and really after the organization United Seniors of Athens County, or USAC as we call it, which is the governing body for the senior center at the community center, the Athens County Senior Center.
Right.
After it was formed, I was asked to serve on the board of directors and have been off and on ever since. And I don't know really how many years that goes back. The policy with their board of directors is that you serve for a period of 3 years, then you're eligible for re-election for another 3 years, then you must step down a mandatory year, then you're eligible to start the cycle all over again. So I have been in and out, in and out, in and out ever since, and I'm still on their board of directors. And so that has been one of the organizations. The other organization is the Athens Village, that I think you're very familiar with.
Yeah.
And
but other people, other places may not be familiar with that concept. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The Athens Village is a concept. It is actually a virtual village. It's not a building. We don't all congregate in a series of apartments, but rather it's a virtual village of people who elect to join. It's not for free, it's a membership organization. But the idea is predicated upon the notion of neighbors helping neighbors. And what better what better time frame, I suppose, in the lifespan to put this into effect than for older people who are still living alone, possibly, or at least living alone in their houses in a community. And the idea of a village was first started in Beacon Hill, Massachusetts, in Boston. And it went over beautifully on Beacon Hill, and apparently it spread from there. I think that we here in town were the first group to organize a rural-based virtual village. There are some others here within the state of Ohio, but we're really probably the only one that you might say is based in a rural area. And it's been going great guns. It's been going great guns ever since.
Right.
And so my part in it, I initially was on its board of directors for a short period of time. And then the organization was looking around for somebody to chair the Public Information Committee, which is really the outreach committee for TAV, as we call it, the Athens Village. And so I volunteered to do that and then went off the board at that point. Am still serving as committee chair for the
your
outreach
advertising
people.
background comes to the
Well,
fore.
it should. I don't know if it's very helpful or not, but it should. But I enjoy doing it. It's been loads of fun. Enjoy doing it very much. And then, of course, there is the University Emeriti Association. I have never been very active in it, with the exception of serving on the initial committee to plan Emeriti Park, which is our memorial park, as you know, for the Emeriti. And that committee, or certain members of the committee, has been reconstituted within recent years because we now have an endowment to consider a kiosk to go in the park that will provide biographical information for all of the emeriti who are memorialized throughout the park. And so I'm currently serving on that committee. So it's another aspect, I think, of working with the older population, although in a very different sort of way.
Right.